You do not need as much protein as you've probably been told that you do. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And again, this is when we put out objective, unbiased data. And this is the stuff that even the best experts in the fitness world have come out at this point and said, people who actually have research backgrounds, who look at these things and they say, yeah, there can be certain benefits to going beyond these protein intakes, but gaining muscle does not appear to be one of them. Not only gaining muscle, it's preserving muscle mass in a calorie deficit. Doesn't even seem to be the case unless you are trying to get absolutely contest shredded. And even to my knowledge, only one study ever conducted on natural bodybuilders even found that to be the case. Keep in mind, it's a single study, and that was Dr. Eric Helms's doctoral work that he did his PhD in. He did it on natural bodybuilders. And, so again, if you're only trying to cut down to, 9 or 10% body fat just to have a nice six pack, you can even disregard that data because it was in people cutting down to 5%. So what are the numbers that we have and how does it conflict with historical numbers? And this is what we find, and I've seen a lot of people like Minnow put out very in-depth reviews of this, of taking all the peer reviews and breaking it down and looking at it systematically. And keeping in mind, that's someone who is a bodybuilder. He cares about bodybuilding. This is not just, a lab coat guy. So he pointed that out, that all these studies have found that really that 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight is your safe zone. So when people say, so what is that? So if you weigh 220 pounds or 100 kilograms, that's 160 grams of protein a day. Okay, that is your wiggle room. People say, well, I want an insurance policy. No, you can go under that and still be in the optimal range. What they have found is that that is the absolute threshold where there isn't any insurance policy beyond that. I'm just making sure. No, because that gets you there already. Okay, that makes up for the fact that maybe your diet might not be fully the best proteins, right? Someone who has a lot of more inferior proteins in their diet might actually benefit from hitting that 1.6. Okay, different things, maybe some minor malabsorption issues. Okay, but what they have consistently found over and over is that for many people, the range is actually a little lower. At least one study on even competitive bodybuilders found that muscle growth and muscle protein synthesis maxed out at even 1.2 to 1.3 grams per kilogram of body weight. And that was also because they were probably using whey protein supplements and stuff, which are a superior protein gram for gram. So put that in context. So for a 220-pound bodybuilder, that's 120 grams of protein. Now, this is where we get into the base. When you bring this up, people will try to say, well, you can't say that we only need the RDA. Well, no one is saying you only need the RDA. Okay? That's like double the RDA. So if you go off of data like that, those ones on the lower end of that spectrum, like that 1.2, that is saying that the optimal range is at least double the RDA. Right? The RDA only gets you about halfway there. So yes, we would all agree the RDA is completely wrong for lifters. Completely wrong. Doesn't work like that 60, 65 grams, what they want people to get. Okay? But it's also a far cry from what supplement industry is trying to push to you. And I think what people have to remember, this is not a new idea to say, look, this is all just supplement stuff doing this, and it's possible to maximize your gains on way less. There were some big names way back in the day in bodybuilding who were already saying the same thing. So before people jump in and say, well, I want to see it in the real world, okay, maybe that's true in these labs, but all these bodybuilders have done that. And it's like, yeah, but how many of them have done it because they were told to? And then how many of them chose to do different and still got just as good of results? I mean, how about Mike Minger? How about like Nasser El Sambate? I always get his name wrong. I always called it Sambati, but I think it's Sambate. Right? Mr. Olympia contender. The guy was monstrous. The guy was like shredded at 250 when the guys are not. He was one of the bigger guys, top 3 biggest guys in the world at that time. Okay? He had said in some interviews that, he tried for a while even prepping for like the Mr. Olympia on as little as 150 grams a day. under 200 grams, even in his off season. And he's like, I honestly had no trouble gaining muscle. I had no trouble getting shredded. I had no trouble placing in the top 5 for the Mr. Olympia. Okay. Now when you have someone say that, people's counter arguments tend to be, well, he's on gear. He got away with that. Well, if your argument's going to be, well, these studies are on a bunch of natural people, so therefore we can't apply it to serious bodybuilders, then you can't turn around and argue and say, well, if the serious bodybuilders on tons of gear try the same thing and it works, we can't use it. So it's like, so there's nothing that works then. So again, context, people. But that was an example. Mike Minzer said the same thing. I mean, he talked about that in the 80s of like, look, guys, it's you don't need that much. Like, you probably should never even need over 200 grams of protein to be at the Mr. Olympia. He said that. He's like, you just need enough. It's like there's no evidence for it. And biologically, it doesn't even make sense, particularly for gaining muscle. Why? Because you need to accrue new tissue proteins, and we are recycling proteins all the time. Okay, we are recycling hundreds of grams of our tissue proteins every day already. Your net protein gain in a day is only a few grams. It's only a few grams. Like, you're not putting on more than 5 to 10 grams of new actual protein into your muscles in a single 24-hour period, even using magical supplements, let alone natural. Okay, so from that context, you should look at it and go, well, we don't need that much. But then if that's the case, that also displays how inefficient the human body can be, because we still see extra muscle growth by adding 50 grams over the RDA, and then sometimes going a little higher. So that does go to show you that our metabolic machinery isn't as efficient as we would like. But if it was purely a case of, well, yeah, we have to build more muscle, therefore we need more of the stuff that muscles are built out of. Yeah, but that's a very, very, very small amount in a single day. And again, when we look at the data, we find the reality is way closer to between the two extremes. Right, between what the RDA and experts say you need for basic health versus what the supplement industry has said you need to gain muscle. The true number is actually about evenly between the two. And this is what all the best research shows. And then on top of that, it's not like it hasn't been tested in the real world. Tons of serious competitive bodybuilders following these practices at this point have found that, yeah, it works just fine. You don't need the excessive amounts you've been told for those purposes. There can be other benefits and metabolic benefits and certain things with recomposition for overfeeding, but gaining muscle is not one of them. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.